Krishna Bhakti Krishna Prem Seva Pravartan Lupta Tīrtha Udara Ar Vairagya Shikshan. So we've been discussing these elements over the last few days, and today we're discussing a very, very interesting element, which is Tīrtha. Tīrtha is a very, very interesting word, and we're going to be looking at how Tīrtha means a sacred space, a sacred location, but Tīrtha also means also a very, very sacred location that comes with a very, very special mood. And this is why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so much wanted the Goswamis of Vrindavan to popularize Vrindavan. Actually, when we go to Vrindavan today, most of what we know, the reason why Vrindavan is a place that we can go actually really is only because of the Goswamis. And we'll be looking at this today. But before we begin, I just want to ask you a question. What do you do to relax? Not you, because we know what devotees do to relax. There's hearing, chanting, taking prasadam. But what do you think people in the world do to relax? What do you think are the top ways that people relax in the world to kind of, just...
They go on vacation.
They go on vacation, okay.
They meditate.
Listening to music.
Listening to music.
Sports. Nature bath.
Sports. Nature bath. Sleep.
Meditation.
Meditation. Watching TV. Walking, yeah. Drinking. Thank you, Vishwamba. Yes. Yeah, these are actually the top 4 ways in which people relax. They did a survey, and it's very, very interesting. One of the top ways people relax is they go on holiday, or they watch TV, or watch a movie, or something like that, or they take some form of intoxication, as Vishwamba does. No, I'm joking. As he says people does. And they go to sleep, yeah. Can you see a common thread between all of these activities? And this is just a normal survey of what people do in the world to relax. Can you see a common thread between all 4 of these activities? Yeah.
Inactivity.
Inactivity, yeah.
Escape.
They're all an escape, isn't it? When you go on holiday, you escape your real life. When you watch a TV or a movie, you forget about your life. When you take intoxication, covered. And sleep means unconscious. Very interesting, isn't it? What people actually do to relax in the world is they're basically trying to escape their life. But the interesting thing is, when you go on holiday, at one point you have to come back. You can't be on an eternal holiday. Devotees are sometimes on eternal holiday, but when you watch a TV or a movie, at one point it ends and you're back to your life. Intoxication you can take, but at one point it wears off. There's the morning after, the night before. And sleep, how long can you sleep for? At one point you have to wake up. So although people are trying to escape, there's no permanent escape, because you have to keep coming back to your life. This is a very, very famous quote from the very famous author C.S. Lewis, who said, "If I find within myself desires which no experience of this world can fulfill, I must conclude I was made for another world." So Srila Prabhupada constantly made this point in his preaching, that we are like fish out of water, and no matter what you do, whatever you arrange, whatever you create, whatever situation you engineer in this world to try to find satisfaction, it won't work, because we're not meant to be here. We're meant to be in the spiritual atmosphere. We're meant to be in the spiritual realm. And therefore, that is what we seek in our hearts of hearts, to connect with the eternal place, where every step is a dance, where every word is a song, where all trees fulfill all desires, where all water is nectar. Brahma Samhita is explaining. It's interesting, even when you read fairy tales, how does every fairy tale end? And they lived happily ever after. And what are the 3 characteristics of the soul? Sat Chit Ananda. It's interesting that when you look at these two things, they coincide because they lived. Lived means sentience, chit. Happily means ananda. Ever after means sat. So even when they say in fairy tales, and they lived happily ever after, it's actually an indication of the qualities of the soul. The desire to experience a life of sat, a life of chit, and a life of ananda. So you don't even have to be a big philosopher to understand that this is what everyone is looking for. Even kids in their primary books say, we want to live happily ever after. That is the... So you see, the deepest theological points you don't have to establish. They're just so innate within our own behavior, within our own language. And so we desire to reach this realm. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of his main purposes in coming to the world was to reveal that realm. And in a very, very famous verse by someone called Srinath Chakravarti wrote a commentary on the Bhagavatam entitled the Chaitanya Manjusa. And in that commentary is this very, very famous verse. Aradhyo Bhagavan Vraje Satanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupashana Vrajavadu Vargena Ya Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatradharana Parah. This is a very, very beautiful verse. It says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the son of Nanda Maharaj, is to be worshipped along with his transcendental abode, Vrindavan. The most pleasing form of worship for the Lord is that which was performed by the gopis of Vrindavan. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless authority on everything, and pure love of God is the ultimate goal of life for all men. These statements, for which we have the highest regard, are the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if you want to summarize very, very simply what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach, he came to teach that the ultimate goal of life, prema pumartho mahan. Life without love is not life at all. Therefore Kaviraj Goswami says, prema dhana vina vyartha daridra jivan das kori vetan more deha prema dhan. He says, prema dhana vina vyartha. If one is devoid of love, daridra jivan, they must be considered an incredibly impoverished soul. And therefore he prays, Dasakori, O Lord, make me your servant. Vetan more, and I only pray for one salary. Deha prema dhan, give me the wealth of love. So one who has love for Krishna, they are wealthy. And someone who has everything else but no love, they are impoverished. So the ultimate goal, Mahaprabhu says, is love. And who are we trying to love? Specifically, Vraja Isha Tanaya. Who is the Vraja Isha? The controller of Vrindavan is Nanda Maharaj, and Tanaya means the son of Nanda Maharaj. The Dhama Vrindavanam, who lives in Vrindavan. And so we're specifically trying to love Krishna of Vrindavan. Remember, the Bhagavatam teaches us who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. But the Goswamis are highlighting who is the Supreme Personality of Krishna. And that's Krishna who lives in Vrindavan. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is. Who has such a relationship of love with Krishna? Vrajavadhu, Vargena Ya Kalpita. They are Vrajavadhus, the milkmaids of Vrindavan. And they have a certain type of intensity, purity, absorption in Krishna that is unparalleled in its intensity. And therefore the gopis become the highest exemplars of love. And if we want to learn to develop that kind of love, or develop the love that is within our own hearts, then what is the praman? The praman is the evidence or the means. That is Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore these are the basic teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he came to teach the world. And so, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled, here you can see these are all the different places where Mahaprabhu traveled. He was teaching this, and part of Mahaprabhu's intention was to go to Vrindavan, because one of the main aspects was to reveal the glory of Vrindavan. Just to share with you, let's see if this works. So Mahaprabhu, as you know, was born in... Okay, let's see if it's going to work. No. So I just want to show you this because it's... sometimes these things work, sometimes they don't. Okay, not working. Okay, anyway, you can see. Yeah, I can show you like this. That's a good idea. So Mahaprabhu was born here in Navadvip, as you know. Does anyone know the first place that Mahaprabhu traveled to outside of Navadvip? Yeah, in the Nadia area he was, but where was the first place he went outside of Nadia when he traveled? Gaya, that came later. First he went to East Bengal. He traveled to East Bengal as a scholar, remember? And he met Tapan Mishra. So this is the first place that Mahaprabhu traveled to. And then he came back. And then after he came back to Navadvip, then the next place he traveled to was Gaya. What happened in Gaya? He met Ishvara Puri, isn't it? And he was initiated by Ishvara Puri. And then Mahaprabhu came back to Navadvip. And then Mahaprabhu, after he got initiated by Ishvara Puri in Gaya, he came back as a God-intoxicated saint. He was chanting and he was spreading on the streets of Nadia. All the devotees were engaged in Harinam Sankirtan. But then at one point Mahaprabhu decided that he would take sannyas. So then where did he go to? Katwa. Has anyone ever been there? Okay, you can go to that place where Mahaprabhu took sannyas. It even has it has some items from the barber and the person who shaved Mahaprabhu up like that. After Katwa, Mahaprabhu came back via Shantipur, and he stopped at Shantipur at Advaita Acharya's house, and everyone from Navadvip came there to meet him. And at that time, who also came from Navadvip to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? His mother, Sachimata. And Sachimata, she made one request of Mahaprabhu. Actually, she made two requests. The first request is that while Mahaprabhu was in Shantipur, only she should be allowed to cook for him. Typical mother's request. But she made one other request of Mahaprabhu. What was that? To make Jagannath Puri his headquarters, because she said that Jagannath Puri and Navadvip are like two rooms in the same house. So even though you've taken sannyas, at least if you stay in Jagannath Puri, because devotees always go back and forth like this, at least I will hear news of you. So then Mahaprabhu went to Jagannath Puri. And then from Jagannath Puri, he stayed very short, maybe just a month or two. And then what did Mahaprabhu do immediately after? He went on tour of South India. So he went all the way down here. He came all the way up here. And he came all the way across India. And he came back to Jagannath Puri. Anyone know how many kilometers that was, that journey? Want to have a guess? 3,000? Yeah, it's about 4,000 kilometers. And he did it in 2 years. So he walked all the way like this for 2 years. And then at the age of 26, he came back to Puri. And then Mahaprabhu decided that he wanted to try to go to Vrindavan, but he said, I will go to Vrindavan via Ramakeli. Bit strange, isn't it? Vrindavan is here and Ramakeli is here. So how do you go via Ramakeli? It seems like totally out of the way. But the reason that Mahaprabhu wanted to go to Ramakeli was because who was in Ramakeli? Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis were there, and they were his confidential devotees. So he went there, he met them, and then he planned to go to Vrindavan, but they told him there's too many people following you, therefore you should come back to Puri. So Mahaprabhu came back to Puri. And then after being in Puri again, then Mahaprabhu said, now I definitely have to go to Vrindavan. So he traveled to Vrindavan via Varanasi, Prayag. He went through like this, Jharkhand forest, and then he came to Vrindavan and he did Vrajamandal Parikrama. And then he came back via the same route. And when he came back from Vrindavan, he stopped at Prayag. And who did he instruct there in Prayag? Rupa Goswami. And then he came to Varanasi. And who did he instruct there? Sanatan Goswami. And then he came back to Puri. And then practically, apart from going Alalnath sometimes, Mahaprabhu after that basically remained in Puri for the rest of his life. So that's basically Mahaprabhu's life in travels.
Where is Gambira?
The Gambira? Gambira is in Jagannath Puri. So in the final days, Mahaprabhu was in the Gambira in Jagannath Puri. So basically, Mahaprabhu tried to go to Vrindavan 3 times. The first time he tried to go to Vrindavan was after he had taken initiation from Ishvara Puri. Then he was walking to Vrindavan and a voice came from the sky, no, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You've come to reveal the Yuga Dharma. You should go back to Navadvip. So God had to be reminded, you're God and you have a duty to perform. So Mahaprabhu wanted to go after Gaya, but he couldn't. Had to go back to Navadvip. Then the next time that Mahaprabhu wanted to go is he had taken sannyas at Katwa. And he thought, now I'm a sannyasi, now I'll go to Vrindavan. But then who promised to take Mahaprabhu to Vrindavan? Was it Nityananda? Nityananda said, I'll take you to Vrindavan, just follow me. And Mahaprabhu was such an ecstasy, he didn't know what was going on. And Nityananda misdirected him and took him to Shantipur. And then he found Advaita Acharya. He said, how did you end up in Vrindavan? Advaita said, Jaha tumi, say Vrindavan. Wherever you are, that is Vrindavan. Actually, you're not in Vrindavan, you're in Shantipur. So second time, Mahaprabhu failed. Then the third time Mahaprabhu wanted to go was when he met Rupa and Sanatan at Ramakeli. But then they convinced him, now you cannot go. It's too dangerous. Too many people are following you. So he failed a third time. And then the fourth time, ultimately he wanted to go, then he reached Vrindavan. So Mahaprabhu was teaching us to go to Vrindavan is not so easy. Even Srila Prabhupada said, you cannot book an air ticket to Vrindavan. One requires some qualification. One requires to have the mercy of Krishna to enter Vrindavan. But finally Mahaprabhu did enter into Vrindavan. And then on his way back from Vrindavan, when he met Rupa and Sanatan in Prayag and Varanasi, then he told them, please, one of my instructions to you is, Lupta Tīrtha Udhara Ad. Excavate Vrindavan, because now Vrindavan is lost. It became covered over. There were invasions. There were, there was deterioration of the holy places, and Vrindavan was practically unknown. So he told the Goswamis, I want you to go there and make Vrindavan known again. And so that's what they did. So basically in our theology, we say there are 4 types of Vrindavan actually. There's Goloka Vrindavan, which is the transcendent Vrindavan in the spiritual world. Then there is Bhauma Vrindavan, the spiritual world which descends into this realm, which we travel to, which many devotees go to every single year and take shelter of. But then we say there is also the envisioned Dham. What is the envisioned Dham? That is the Vrindavan that is created by the vision of a pure devotee. So a pure devotee, they can go to any place, and because of their devotion, because Krishna resides so actively within their heart, because the community they create is centered around Krishna, that also becomes Vrindavan. Therefore Prabhupada created new Vrindavan, new Mayapur, new Dwarka, new Panihati. All these are envisioned dhams. And then ultimately we say that the dham is also residing within the pure devotee. They are walking places of pilgrimage. And therefore when Vidura went on pilgrimage and then finally he came back to the palace, then how did Yudhishthira glorify him when he came back? Bhavat vida bhagavatas tirtha bhuta svayam vibho tirti kurvanti tirthani svantasteina gadabrita. He said, Vidura, you are a walking place of pilgrimage. You are walking tirtha because you carry Krishna within your heart. So tirtha, what does tirtha mean? It means a bridge to eternity. A tirtha means an entrance into eternity, a portal, a bridge, a connection point, a gateway through which even in this world you can begin to experience the transcendent world. And tirtha is the place where tattva, sadachara and seva are naturally a part of daily life. And so Mahaprabhu wanted the Goswamis to establish tirthas, places of pilgrimage where devotees could go to feel what is it like to be in the spiritual world. Jai Shri Radha Gopinath Ki Jai. So therefore when we go, so we say that the holy dham, Bhoma Vrindavan, when you go there, if one is in the right consciousness, then one can begin to perceive what the transcendent spiritual world is like. When one comes to a community, if all the community are very much inspired in their own devotion, then you create an energy in the community whereby anyone who comes here feels like, yes, must be what it's like in the spiritual world. And when you're around someone who's connected to that spiritual reality, then it doesn't matter where you are, just by being in their vicinity, one feels like I'm moving in the spiritual world. So these are the tirthas which are very, very important for us. And therefore one of the main important work of the Goswamis was to bring people to these tirthas. And so today even the devotees, they go to Vrindavan and they see the natural beauty. They go to the places of pilgrimage where Krishna performs so many activities. They see the deities that were worshipped with such love by the personal example of the Goswamis. Devotees go there and they chant and they immerse themselves. And like this, they remember the Yamuna, Govardhan, the dust of Vrindavan. These are the essential elements. Srimati Radharani, when Krishna was coming to perform his pastimes in the material world, then she said, I won't come unless you bring Yamuna, Govardhan, Giriraj, and dust and forests of Raj. So Krishna brought all those elements to this world. And ultimately, Jiva Goswami says that Vrindavan is a state of consciousness. So when we say that the Goswamis had come to excavate Vrindavan, we are talking on two levels. That they came to excavate the actual physical, it's not physical, it's not material, it's completely aprakrita, but the tangible aspects of Vrindavan, which is the holy places, the temples and so on. But what they also came to popularize to the world is the spirit of Vrindavan. Because Vrindavan, Jiva Goswami says in the Sandarbhas, is ultimately a state of consciousness. Now what does this actually mean? In Vrindavan, we find a type of devotion, a type of spiritual immersion, a type of intimacy of love that most people have never heard of before. Srila Prabhupada's godbrother O.B.L. Kapoor, he's a very, very accomplished writer. He writes very beautifully. Vrindavan is a spiritual place which most people have never conceived of. He says in Vrindavan, God loves his devotees as much as they love him. In Vrindavan, God seeks his devotees as much as they seek him. In Vrindavan, God is more human than superhuman. God is more natural than supernatural. And in this way, he begins to describe how the land of Vrindavan, the realm of Vrindavan, is actually an incredible place which has an incredible consciousness, which is actually the aspiration of every single devotee. We could say very, very broadly, there are conventional devotees, those who practice spirituality out of tradition, out of culture, out of some kind of sentiment. But then we say, at one point, maybe they will become committed devotees, sadhakas, ones who are actually practicing with seriousness. But then, of those who become committed, maybe a few will become confidential devotees who embody the highest type of intimacy of love that's found in Vrindavan. And therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through the Goswamis, reveals what is this speciality of Vraja Bhakti, Vraja Bhav, a confidential type of devotion. For a conventional devotee, their spiritual practice is driven by tradition. Their faith is what we call Lokika Shraddha, which means a type of faith or adherence to spirituality which is based very much on just cultural upbringing and tradition, not very deep, not necessarily very, very conscious. But when one becomes a committed devotee, then what's driving their spiritual practice is philosophy, understanding, a deeper appreciation of what the acharyas have given, the teachers have given. So it's a much more conscious type of practice. But for the confidential devotee, what is driving them? The personality, the charm, the beauty, the charisma of Krishna. That is what becomes more and more prominent. For the conventional devotee, oftentimes as they practice spirituality, fear of what may happen if they don't do it and desire for material things is what's driving them. For a committed devotee, what their impetus is duty. Fear means bhaya, desire means asha, duty is called kartavya. But for a confidential devotee, what's driving them is love, prema. You can begin to paint a picture of what is Vrindavan consciousness. For a conventional devotee, really their day-to-day spirituality is made up of rituals, often without understanding the depth of those rituals. For a committed devotee, they also perform those rituals, but now with knowledge, with understanding, with a deeper sense of purpose and direction. But then for the confidential devotee, there are no rituals. Nothing is done out of convention or because this is the way it should be done. Everything is just being driven by a natural desire, a spontaneity, what we call raga. Raga means attachment. Radha. Radha, what is Radha? Srimati Radharani's name. Radha. Ra means raga, dha means davati. So davati means running. And Ra means raga. So Radha literally means one who's running after her object of attachment. No more rituals. This is just life. I wake up because this is just life. I want to see Krishna. I do my Murti Seva. Why? This is not a ritual. Because this is life. This is my opportunity to be with Krishna. For a conventional devotee, Krishna is part of their life. For a committed devotee, Krishna enters all parts of their life. We were talking about this yesterday. Yat karoshi, yadashnashi, yad juhoshi, dadashi yat. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, connect it to me. But for a confidential devotee, they enter into Krishna's life. They don't have their own life anymore. They enter into Krishna's world. They see the world from Krishna's perspective. This is a completely different type of devotion. For the conventional devotee, they think, I will give something to Krishna. The committed devotee thinks, I give everything to Krishna. Can there be something more than giving everything to Krishna? Then what do you think the confidential devotee thinks? Gives himself to Krishna. Yes, that's definitely there as well. But there's something even more than that. Krishna is mine. They went to a Brijabasi's house and he said, what's that? He said, that's Krishna's children. That's Krishna's table. That's Krishna's altar. And who's that? That's Krishna. He's mine. Everything is Krishna's. But Krishna is mine. This is called in Sanskrit mamata. A high level of possessiveness. That everything is Krishna's. Even I give myself to Krishna, but Krishna is mine. This is a completely different type of devotion. The conventional devotee thinks Krishna is subservient to me, isn't it? We go to Krishna with a whole list of desires. The committed devotee realizes, no, I am subservient to Krishna. But then what does the confidential devotee have? That distance is almost removed and there's just intimacy. So 99.9% of the world are doing this. And maybe a few get here. And of the few that get here, maybe one will become a confidential devotee in Vrindavan consciousness. Mahaprabhu wanted to reveal this to the world. That there's something special about the way in which the Brajabasis are relating to God, relating to Krishna. Today we're honoring the appearance day of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and it's very interesting. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu travels in South India, and then during the rainy season, the Chatur Masya, the 4 months of the rainy season, he stops at a place called Sri Rangam. And he stops there, and in Sri Rangam, he stays at the home of someone called Vyankata Bhatta. Now, Sri Rangam is a very, very special place. Sri Rangam is the headquarters of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. The Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya is the Sampradaya in which Ramanuja Acharya appears, and the Sri Sampradaya is focused on the worship of Lakshmi Narayan. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is staying with Vyankata Bhatta, and they're having a very, very cordial time, a very nice time together. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu begins to poke Vyankata Bhatta, and he says, you worship Lakshmi Narayan, but we worship Krishna. And then Vyankata Bhatta says, no, there's no difference. Narayan, Krishna, they are the same. Mahaprabhu says, they're the same? Are you sure? He says, yeah, they're the same. There's no difference. Narayan, one form, Krishna, another form. So then Mahaprabhu asks him a question. And what is that question he asks to Vyankata Bhatta? If Narayan and Krishna are the same, then why is it that Lakshmi Devi, who's the eternal consort of Narayan, performed so many years of penance to try to enter the rasa dance with Krishna? If Narayan and Krishna are the same, and Lakshmi is always side by side with Narayan, then why did Lakshmi Devi perform so many austerities to try to enter the rasa dance? Can you tell me the answer? So Vyankata Bhatta, the heat is rising, he's realizing, oh my God, maybe he's onto something here that I've never thought about. And then Mahaprabhu gives the answer. Siddhanta tastva bedepi Shrisha Krishna Svarupayo Rasanod Krishyate Krishna Rupamesha Rasastiti. Mahaprabhu looks at Vyankata Bhatta and he says, Siddhanta, in terms of philosophical identity, in terms of tattva, in terms of ontology, Tvabedepi. There's no difference between Krishna and Narayan. They're both Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shri Isha, the controller of Isha, Krishna, the controller of Srimati Radharani, Lakshmi Devi, and Krishna, Swarupayo, they're the same. No difference. However, Rasanot Krishyate Krishna, when it comes to rasa, when it comes to sweetness, when it comes to charm, when it comes to intimacy of relationship, when it comes to beauty of character, Rupamesha Rasastiti, then Krishna is special, because Krishna has certain qualities, characteristics, interactions with his devotees that even Narayan does not have. And then Vyankata and the whole family were converted to becoming devotees of Krishna. And Gopal Bhatta, the son of Vyankata, naturally then became of that nature also. And then later on we know Gopal Bhatta came to Vrindavan, and there in Vrindavan he was worshipping the very beautiful deity of Radha Raman. So yesterday, remember, we were explaining that Govindaji is what part of Krishna? His smiling face. Gopinath is what part of Krishna? His neck to his navel, because the two hands are playing the flute and therefore identical to Krishna. And Madan Mohan is which part of Krishna? The waist down, the lotus feet. But then it's said that Sri Radharaman has the face of Govindaji, the waist of Gopinath, and the legs of Madan Mohan. So if you can't make it to see all three deities in one day, if you simply go and see Gopal Bhatta's Radharaman, then you see the full darshan of Krishna. One of the rare deities that is still there in Vrindavan. Most of them were moved, but Sri Radharaman stayed there. And Srila Prabhupada actually told the devotees that they should go to the Radharaman temple and learn deity worship from the pujaris there, because it's the most beautiful standard. Actually, if you want to watch, there's a beautiful movie, very old movie, about Radharaman and the worship of Radharaman. If you go on YouTube, I'm trying to remember the name of that movie. I think it's called The Land of Your Heart's Desire or something like that. But it's a very, very beautiful documentary with the pujaris of Radharaman and how Radharaman is worshipped. It's very, very beautiful. So please try to see that. On this day, it's very nice, Gopal Bhatta's appearance there. You can watch that. So can you begin to see? This is what Mahaprabhu wanted the Goswamis to reveal. Not just the land of Vrindavan, but the spirit of Vrindavan, the spirit of Raja Bhakti. Because what did Mahaprabhu come to give? Prem ras niryas korite ashvadan, raga marga bhakti loke korite pracharn. He came not just to taste prema ras, not just to taste raga bhakti, but then to make that available for everyone else. And therefore, knowledge of Vrindavan, knowledge of the ways in which the Brajabasis interact with Krishna is essential. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came also to teach one other thing. Not just that the mood of Vrindavan is the highest, but within Vrindavan there's something very, very amazing which happens, which is the mood of separation. Separation from Krishna is transcendentally bringing one actually closer to Krishna. In Sanskrit, we say the word for separation from Krishna is viraha. So viraha means separation. But the acharyas give a double meaning of viraha. They say viraha also means vishesha rahasya unmilam. So viraha means separation, but it also means vishesha, a special, rahasya unmilam type of meeting. So viraha has a double meaning. In one sense it means separation, but in another sense it means a very, very confidential type of meeting. And therefore Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to experience this mood of separation that is so much embodied within the gopis of Vrindavan. The highest mood of love for Krishna is the mood that Srimati Radharani has. That intensity of love cannot be emulated by anyone. But the mood of Srimati Radharani when she's in separation is intensified to an even higher degree. And when Krishna left Vrindavan, that separation went to an even higher degree. So you can begin to see how there's intensities of love. Srimati Radharani already loves Krishna, but during the day when she's not with Krishna, there's a deep mood of separation which intensifies it. But then at one point Krishna leaves Vrindavan completely and her mood goes to an even higher level of intensity. And then what happens is at one point when Krishna has left Vrindavan, then what he does is he sends Uddhav with a message. And he says, go to the residents of Braj and tell them that I'm thinking about them and in the future I'll come back to see them. And when Uddhav comes to deliver that message to Srimati Radharani, there's a place in Vrindavan you can go to today, it's called Uddhav Kyari. And this is the place where Uddhav delivers this message. At that time, Srimati Radharani's mood of separation goes to its highest degree. And it's said that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to this world and he was in the Gambhira, then he was coming to experience the mood of Srimati Radharani, and specifically the mood of Srimati Radharani in separation when Krishna had left Vrindavan at the specific time when Uddhav was delivering this message, Uddhav Sandesh. Mahaprabhu did not just experience this mood of separation, but he also wanted to share this mood of separation with the world, to explain that the sadhaka, when they try to connect with Krishna in a mood of separation, in a feeling that I'm very far away from Krishna, but that desperation of the separation creates an intensity in which one feels a very close communion. This is actually what Mahaprabhu wanted to teach the world through the Goswamis. So Rupa Goswami, in his literature, he explains that there are different types of separation. One type of separation is known as Purva Rag. This means the separation that two lovers feel before they're about to meet. Then another type of separation is known as Man, which means a separation which comes from transcendental pride. For example, Srimati Radharani and Krishna have an argument. Out of transcendental pride, Srimati Radharani removes herself out of the situation, and now they're separate, and therefore there's a separation that then comes in. Rupa Goswami says a third type of separation is known as Prema Vaichitya, which means a type of separation that happens whilst in union. In other words, Radha and Krishna are together, but the thought that in the future they may be separated already brings in a sense of a deep mood of transcendental separation, even while they're sitting next to each other. And then Rupa Goswami says that the fourth type of separation is pravas, which means when they're physically separated by time and place, then there is also a separation that takes place. Why am I sharing this with you? Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that the Goswamis came to teach us that we should practice our bhajan, our sadhana, our spiritual practices in a mood of separation. But then he raises the question, how can we feel separation from Krishna when we practically have no remembrance of meeting him? So that's difficult, because if you've been with someone, if you've experienced love and exchange with them, and that's very fresh in your memory, and then you're separated, then naturally a feeling of separation comes about. But he says for the sadhaka, they have no recollection of being with Krishna. They have no recollection of experiencing that love with Krishna. And therefore, how will they be able to imbibe this mood of separation? And therefore, he gives the key. How do you experience separation as a sadhaka? He says what you have to constantly do is hear Harikatha, hear about Krishna. Because the more and more you hear about Krishna, the more and more you absorb your heart and mind in the name, fame, form, pastimes of Krishna, then you will actually develop this purva rag, this type of separation where there's a great anticipation that in the future I'll meet Krishna, but I haven't met him yet, but I'm feeling separated, but I will meet him. And it's this separation in purva rag which brings the devotee very, very close to Krishna. Who is the example of someone who had a great longing and feeling of separation from Krishna, even though in their life up to that point they had never met Krishna? Rukmini, exactly. Rukmini is the ideal example because many saints and sages would come to the palace of Bhishmaka and give many discourses. Narad Muni would come there and they would constantly talk about Krishna, and therefore she was hearing so much about Krishna. And then she sent the love letter with the Brahman messenger, and finally Krishna came to kidnap her. So this is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted the Goswamis to excavate Vrindavan. Number one, for a very practical purpose, which is that Vrindavan would become a center of spiritual activity, marking the holy places of Krishna, and there would be temples there, so it would inspire. But the other more subtle reason why Mahaprabhu wanted to excavate Vrindavan and the Goswamis to glorify Vrindavan is because he wanted to bring the spirit of Vrindavan, the spirit of Raja Bhakti, the spirit of having raga or deep attachment for Krishna as the ultimate aspiration of all the devotees. An aspiration that cannot be prematurely entered, and therefore Rupa Goswami says there's a pathway to entering Vraja Bhakti, and one cannot prematurely approach this kind of mood, but still it should be kept in the mind and hearts of the devotees that this is our ultimate aspiration. And therefore Rupa Goswami says, Tannama Rupa Charitadi Sukirtananushmityo Kramena Rasana Manasi Niyojatistan Vraje Tadanuragi Jananugami Kalam Nayad Akila Mityupadesha Saram. He writes a book, Upadesha Amrita, the nectar of all instructions. And in the 8th instruction, he says, this is the Upadesha Saram. Of all the nectar of instructions, this is the nectar of the nectar. This is the ultimate of all instructions. That one should utilize their full time, 24 hours a day, in chanting and remembering the Lord's name, form, qualities and pastimes, engaging one's tongue and mind. And in this way, one should always reside in Vrindavan and serve Krishna under the guidance of the devotees who have developed Vraja Bhakti. And one should therefore follow in the footsteps and develop that deep attachment themselves. And this was one of the major other contributions of the Goswamis, that in our life, Tīrthas, sacred spaces where we can connect with the transcendent reality, and spending time in the Tīrtha is incredibly, incredibly important, because it is there that we begin to reawaken this real dormant consciousness that is within every devotee's heart. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So yeah, we have like 10 minutes so we can take some questions. Yes? I know how to go.
I have it's a rather technical question. When we have a darshan of the deity, then we normally start looking from the lotus feet up to the face. And progression also in terms of sambandha Abhidaya Prayojan is going from Radhadesh Mohan over Govindaji to Gopinath. But this description of different portions, it doesn't match this. It's a seeming inconsistency.
So you're saying on one hand Gopinath is like the ultimate goal is Gopinath, but still Gopinath is it's like
I'm sorry about this.
Yeah, no, it's true, because even like we say Sanatan Goswami was worshipping Madan Mohan and therefore he's the Sambandha Acharya. Rupa Goswami was worshipping Govinda Dev and therefore he's the Abhidaya Acharya. And of course we say Raghunath Das Goswami is the Prayojana Acharya. So sometimes, there is that sense. I don't have an answer to that. I guess in spiritual life it's not always necessarily. Thank you. Vish, and then we'll go back there.
Two questions, one small one. You mentioned about Obiel Kapoor's point about Krishna loves his devotees as much as they love him in Vrindavan. And I just wanted to clarify that that's like a glorification of the devotees' love being so intense, right? That's what
it's in Vrindavan. It's like we hear that Krishna sees Srimati Radharani's devotion, or and then he becomes inspired, and then she becomes inspired by seeing his, and then there's this like whole transcendental competition going on. So yes, it's a glorification. They say, if you find a theology where the devotee cries for God, you can understand that's an amazing theology. But if you can find a theology where God cries for the devotee, that's an even more amazing theology. But if you can find a theology where God becomes a devotee to cry for himself, then you can understand that's off the wall. That's Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So Mahaprabhu comes to Vrindavan in the mood of a devotee and cries for his, and in Vrindavan Krishna is crying for his, so it's very confidential, because otherwise we think, the conventional religious idea is that, there's some kind of hierarchy there, but this is dynamic.
And then the other question was about how to use like mundane attachment, or diminishing the pain of mundane attachment through, I suppose, stimulate as a stimulus for attachment to Krishna, or I guess.
How to?
Sometimes there's a connection between like a mundane aspect. So there's a separation in mundane sphere.
Oh, okay. But how do we know it's spiritual? Like, if we feel some emotion for Krishna, is that what you're saying?
No, I just mean to say it's just plainly mundane separation feelings, and how to use those, because we feel those maybe those mundane level separation feelings. How to dovetail it, how to use it for. Well,
those sentiments are actually meant for Krishna. I remember once I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing, but on the Vyasasana they started singing this song by Bryan Adams. What was that song? I can't remember it now. Everything I do it for you. There was a famous song like that. So he had printed out the whole lyrics and he started singing it on the Vyasa. I was like, okay. So obviously those sentiments were meant for some frustrated love towards some. But when you actually look at the lyrics, you think like, oh my God, like if only you felt like that about Krishna. That would be like, that's like Braja Bhakti, So it's actually all of these sentiments that we feel of like frustrated love or separation, they actually find their perfection with Krishna. But the difference is when those sentiments are here, then they just create more of a distance and more of a frustration. Whereas when those sentiments are expressed in the spiritual realm, in their original then they bring a closeness and an increased intensity and eagerness. Like Srimati Radharani and the gopis, Krishna has left, and they're saying, we're living a suspended existence. We can't live because Krishna has left. But we can't die because there's the rope of hope that one day Krishna will come back. So Krishna, what kind of person? You don't let us live and neither you let us die. We're existing in Vrindavan as ghosts. Because we can't live or die. So when we see these kind of, emotions and mundane, it's all a reflection, isn't it? It's all a reflection of the spiritual world. So there's so much you can learn. See all these songs in the charts, all about separation. It's like, wow, good. You could use it.
I remember watching Nimai of Nadia, and then it's like a lot of separation between mother and son, but that's like mundane that I'm conceiving of, and I suppose they're having that ecstasy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Listen.
Thank you for this nice explanation. I was thinking something. When we speak about entering Vrindavan, of course, as you said, it's Vrindavan is a state of mind, because before you saw there, you projected this bridge to the...
Yes.
And the confidential devotees have a particular rasa when they enter the Dham. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, many of these confidential associates were never been in Vrindavan. And also when Jagadananda Pandit wanted to go there, he warned him, no, if you go to Vrindavan, you will criticize the people there.
Yeah.
Jagadananda Pandit was very much attached to the rules, but he was a confidential devotee of Sri Chaitanya, pure devotee, so to say. So it's quite controversial at this point, no? If you can maybe put some light. And another little point is that Srila Rupa Goswami never wrote anything about the Nityananda. He just wrote about Lord Chaitanya. You know maybe why?
Who never wrote? Who?
Rupa Goswami
never wrote about
anything
Nityananda.
about Lord Nityananda, but he always wrote Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah, okay. Very nice points, Ru. So, yes, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met many devotees, and some of them he converted to Vraja Bhakti, to Krishna Bhakti, like Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Venkata Bhatta and others. And others did not. Murari Gupta, he did not change his determination. Anupam, the brother of Rupa and Sanatan, he was a Ram Bhakta till the end. So yes, we understand also that every devotee is having their own unique relationship with Krishna, but still we understand that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was making that accessible. The 4th verse of the Adi Leela, chapter number 1, Anarpita chiram chirat karunaya vatirna kalo samarpayitum unatta jala rasam svabhakti shriyam, which means that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came anarpita, to give that access to that which was not given before. Samarpayitum, that which was anarpita, had never been given. Samarpayitum, he gave it completely, he gave access. So what we understand is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives access, but then every devotee has their own free will and their own desire, and therefore their bhakti will evolve in a certain way according to that. So I guess that's one point. Your question on why Rupa Goswami didn't write so much about Nityananda Prabhu, I don't have a specific reference for that. Of course, we know that the amount of time that the Goswamis spent with Nityananda was quite less. Because basically, if you think about Rupa Goswami's life, he was in Ramakeli. Finally, Mahaprabhu came there, And then Rupa Goswami basically had 2 meetings with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one at Prayag for 10 days, and then one at Jagannath Puri for, could be 2 years, was it? Maybe longer. Yeah, 2 months. 2 months or 2 years? Anyway, an extended meeting at Puri. But even Nityananda was not in Puri at that time, because he had told Nityananda that you should preach in Bengal. Yeah. So actually his exposure to Nityananda was not so great. Therefore, the most information we find about Nityananda is from Vrindavan Das Thakur in Chaitanya Bhagavat. And then later on, other commentators write about Nityananda. So,
He didn't even write about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so much.
who didn't?
Rupa Goswami.
Who did?
Rupa Goswami, they didn't even
Write about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's true also, yeah. What we know about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was written mainly by the other biographers, Murari Gupta, who spent childhood with Mahaprabhu. Of course, Kaviraj Goswami, who got all the information from Raghunath, who got the information from Swarup Damodar, who was his personal secretary. So I guess it's a matter of exposure, like how much. Either, what you find is most biographers, either they had direct contact or they had an intimate relationship with someone who had direct contact, and therefore they're writing. And then Shamananda Prabhu is there also.
Hare Krishna. Just maybe not a question, but a comment. Because you were mentioning what Mahaprabhu came to teach, like in the mood of separation, and I remembered how I read those verses in Antya-lila where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu feels the emotions that Srimati Radharani expresses in Brahmana Gita, and when he scratches his face and when everything is bleeding and so on. And I still didn't read Antya-lila because of that. Because it's just so, like, I don't understand, like, how, because it seems like it's so much pain, and that pain actually is the highest love and ecstasy. So it's just, it's my, like, observation of it, how I really don't understand it. Like,
yeah, and that's, some devotees may not, like say for example in Gaudiya Math, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj said this, that in Gaudiya Math, when it would come to the, I think it's the 15th chapter, is that Ramananda Samvad, the 15th of the Madhya? 8th, sorry, yeah, the 8th chapter of the Madhya Leela, where it comes to Mahaprabhu having his conversations with Ramananda Rai. Actually, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would not allow the devotees to read it. We read it, we're reading it in the manna right now. But actually he wouldn't, because he would say at this point you cannot appreciate, you cannot understand this. So yeah, there may be some license like that, like if the devotees feel that I'm not ready. Of course, we're blessed that we're seeing all these things through the lens of our Acharya. Srila Prabhupada is walking with us and guiding us through this experience, through his purports, and therefore in that way we're protected. But yeah, ultimately the full appreciation for such things will only come when one has that level of purity to be able to understand the deeper emotions. Yeah. Thank you.
So, just very quickly to add to Hinanda and now Sanga's point, it was the Lord's instruction to write about Krishna. That's why even, and Shiva Swami raised the point of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Swami's mind, where is Lord Chaitanya? Why is he not there? So they followed his instruction. Write about Krishna, write about where's the Vrindavan. Don't write about me, but the biographers didn't get that instruction, so that's where we get it. So the lack of mention of Mahaprabhu and Lord Jinanda in the Goswami literature, because they're following the instruction.
Yes.
This is what he told them to do, and this is exactly what they did. Write about Braj Bhakti and Krishna.
Yes, so that was their focus because their instructions was to reveal that. Yeah, yeah, very nice. Yeah.
Just my second, I have 3 points on it very quick. On your Satchitananda, happy ever after.
Yeah.
I mean, the point that in the world you can see it's there pervertedly.
Yeah.
These attractions, and I also think in the world too, with children and advertisement, they make everything personal. It's the natural thing, like, and my favourite one is car washes. If you ever go to a car wash, picture the car with what? Big eyes and a smile for the bumper. Come into our car wash, here's a smiley car. So, I mean,
everything has a personification.
That's the way they picture to attract people, because we're only attracted to personalism. It's the natural, but then you become an adult, you become beaten out of you to be cold and impersonal. So again, everything ultimately is personal, and we can see it in the world. Everyone's attracted to personalism. That's how. But my question is, this is a topic of Tīrtha, and as you said, you raised the question yourself. You're bringing separation as your main topic under Tīrtha. And some devotees getting my case for it, but I tend to think, okay, so I know I've been guilty of thinking I have Krishna. I've got it down now, I've got Krishna. I've got the whole program down of being a devotee. But is it a reality that going from that neophyte and puffed up idea that I have Krishna already, to even going in this direction on this, again you said we should not prematurely imitate it. But is there a genuine reality that I am going to have to experience that I don't have Krishna before I get anyway serious about the sadhana and the bhajan to embrace Vipralambha and that mood? So devotees are going to have to get ready for how much a period of actual distress where I realize I don't have it. I don't have what I thought I had. It's not there. And that's not easy, that's not fun. It's a genuine period in a devotee's life of awakening to the reality that I thought I had something and I don't. And therefore embracing the pain of that,
realizing that I don't.
Of a process. Is it, or am I just being Shananda?
That's a good question. There's an English saying, when you know a little, you think you know a lot, and when you actually know a lot, you think like, I don't know anything at all. That's the nature of, for example, knowledge, that when you have a little bit of knowledge, then you have this almost arrogance that, yeah, I've clocked it, I know everything. But when you actually know a lot, and you realize that actually in Krishna consciousness it's like that, like when in the first year or so, when you get all the major philosophy down, you're like, wow, I'm going to be through this like quick, and then when you begin opening it up and you realize there's this ocean, then it's like, oh my God, but you've actually made advancement. But at the same time, you're feeling like, oh my God, I don't know anything. It's interesting, like say for example, if you're walking towards a mountain, then from a distance the mountain looks big, but as you start getting closer and closer to the mountain, the enormity of the mountain becomes bigger and bigger, and your sense of your own self is that you become smaller and smaller. But the irony is that you're actually moving closer. So in order to feel that separation from Krishna, it's not that we have to I think that separation comes as you're moving closer to Krishna. It's one of those dichotomies of spiritual life. That as you go closer to Krishna, you feel in one sense more and more separated, you feel more and more fallen, because the infiniteness of Krishna and his beauty and our feeling of inability to properly reciprocate with that becomes more and more apparent to ourselves. So I think there is a sense in which, and I think we do experience that as devotees, isn't it? Like as you advance in spiritual life more and more, you think like, I don't think you have to force yourself to think like, I'm far away from Krishna. It kind of naturally comes. Although in one sense you are advancing. I don't know if that, does it make sense? It doesn't make sense. It's not meant to. It's not meant to. But I guess that would, that's something I would, yeah.
This is from online, from the internet, by Caroline. She's a new devotee, and she says she's calling herself new baby to all this. So she's asking, does everyone have to feel this separation? Does it count whether we wish it or not? Will Krishna sometimes leave us and come back? It's a bit of a dreadful thought, as I am only just at the beginning of this path to imagine being separated now.
Yeah, like, because when we hear a word like separation, we only have experience of material separation, and therefore it becomes something which is naturally undesirable. But it's actually, as I said, viraha, separation, simultaneously means vishesha rahasya unmilam, is simultaneously a special kind of meeting. Even another word for separation in Sanskrit is vipralambha. So vipralambha, the double meaning of vipralambha is to access that which is very, very far away, isn't it? It's amazing. So spiritual separation is like this. It's like there's almost this distance and then a closer meeting of hearts in that distance. And therefore it's actually supremely relishable and transcendentally agonizing at the same time. And how do we experience that? I don't know. You just have to experience it. You can't explain it, isn't it? Yeah. I'm just conscious of time because it's 9:10. So, and then there's so many things to do. So I don't know who's in charge. Shall we, because then we have Q&A this evening. Shall we leave it till then?
Maybe one more.
Okay. Get the last thing.
Yes. I just wanted to ask also about this, because yesterday you said that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that we have to make Krishna see us instead of that we want to see Krishna. So how does it fit into all of this?
Yeah, so you have this kind of double thing, like in one sense we say don't try and see Krishna, but act in such a way that Krishna will want to see you. But then Srila Prabhupada very much appreciated, or for example, My Sweet Lord, where George Harrison says, I really want to see you, I really want to see you, but it takes so long, I really want to see you. We hear of the Goswamis, they're going around Vrindavan, Hey Radhe, Vrajadevike, Chalalite, Hey Nanda, Suno, Kata, where are you Krishna, where are you Radharani, are you at the foot of Govardhan, are you in the groves, where are you, looking for Krishna? But then Bhaktisiddhanta said, don't try to see Krishna. So how does that work? We have to understand the focus of the statement. When Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is saying, don't try to see Krishna, what he's emphasizing is don't think that it's your ability, your sadhana, your own accomplishment that will bring Krishna in front of you. Don't think that you can force your way into seeing Krishna. So that's the thrust of the statement. And when we're hearing the Goswami saying, where is Krishna, then that natural eagerness and desire to want to be with Krishna is very, very good. So basically both statements stand true in their own context, that we should have an eagerness to see Krishna, we should have an intense desire that, yes, I want to be with Krishna, otherwise why are we here? But at the same time we should realize that it's only Krishna. Like for example, Satchidananda Maharaj also gives this example that there are many doors to Krishna and you can open the first 99, but the 100th door is locked from the inside and Krishna has to open that one. So the I want to see Krishna is like opening those 99 doors, and then the but don't try and see Krishna. Is the Krishna opening the door from the inside, you see. So both things are true.